Okay, thank you so much. My name is Suzan and I'm going to explain something astrologically using this diagram, picture, whatever. So we can conceptualize all of the planets via the chakra system, which is the energetic system. And that's how they interact with us anyway, right? Because everything is part of consciousness. The planets themselves are part of our own consciousness. They're inside of us, they're working through us. So the radiations come in and they work through our consciousness. And it's all energy, all consciousness. So that's the basic umbrella premise that we're gonna talk about. So we're starting here with the Mula chakra, which is the root chakra. So that's basically Saturn, and it deals with Capricorn and Aquarius. Then we have Jupiter, which is Sagittarius and Pisces, because in Vedic astrology we use the traditional rulership. We do not use the modern rulership. So this is how we create. It's our creative energy. It is the generative energy that goes on through us. It's our desire to procreate, right? So even if we want to create something that's artistic, that comes through that too. So writing a book or making a movie or making a dance routine, any of that and all of that is part of this creative energy, Jupiter, which is joy-giving wisdom, according to my teacher, right? And so we have philosophy and all of that. It's part of that creative, generative process that goes within us. It's looking for that joy. And if you have a troubled Jupiter, like I do, it's going to be harder to kind of create things consistently. Then we have Mars. It's our solar power. It's our need and desire to create a protective barrier between us and the others. Also our own kingdom. So we want to protect our own and we want to protect those who we care about. And so that's all happening through this solar plexus area. And that would be Aries and Scorpio. Then we have Venus, one of my favorites, probably yours too, because it deals with relationships. So that's the heart chakra. It deals with relationships, but not only relationships, it is actually about our worth, our value system. So what do we feel is worth our time? What do we feel is worth our energy? That's all coming through here. It is Taurus and Libra. Libra is all about a win-win situation, unless you have a troubled Libra and troubled planets in Libra, right? So then we're not actually wanting to have a win-win situation. We want to do like a power over, power under dynamic. And so that is not the healthy way to use Libra. Libra wants a win-win situation for all involved. And so just think of that when you're having issues in relationships and you want to blame the other as opposed to taking responsibility for your own part in the whole dynamic, because it takes two to tango, right? So that's all about Venus. Venus is also our vitality. So it's really interesting that that's part of the heart chakra, right? Because it is through our heart that we're pulling in energy towards us. It is, if you follow human design like I do, it would be the equivalent of the magnetic monopole. That's in my opinion, of course, because the magnetic monopole wants us to be in alignment with our truth. It's also part of the heart, right? Which is part of our ego, which can get very complicated trying to discuss that here and now, but the ego part actually deals with our worth. And so it's interesting that that's part of that Venus area. and our value system, and feeling like we have to prove something to the other. Then we have Mercury. I love Mercury. I'm very, very mercurial. And Mercury loves to investigate. It loves to do research. It wants to play games, right? It likes to be like a child in a lot of ways. It likes to wonder, and through the wondering and the investigative process, we come to know our truth. We come to know what is right or not right for us. And that's part of Gemini and Virgo. Virgo loves to have things perfect in alignment, is very interested in all the details. And so that's all part of this here, but it's also our throat chakra, right? So we want to speak out in alignment with our truth. And it's interesting that that comes on top of Venus. Venus and Mercury are actually really close friends. And if you're looking at the wheel of the zodiac, you can see how they're all connected and they're all working with each other. So when you have energy streaming from Saturn into Jupiter, they're actually working together. And they're part of the spiritual clan, I call them. So if you have a Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, meaning they're together at the time of your birth, you're going to probably be more spiritually aligned. You're going to be more interested in spiritual dynamics and spiritual understandings and philosophy and things like that, because they're working together and they're like the teachers, the true teachers. Actually, according to Vedic astrology, Jupiter is a counselor and so is Venus. So, but other than that, Saturn is actually here to serve, right? It's a Shudra, so it's part of the servant class. And so it wants to serve society. It wants to serve a higher cause. And so it hooks up with Jupiter here, that's already a joyful, wanting to create and procreate and kind of like keep life going, right? Because it's also called Jiva. Jiva is life. So they're always working together, especially if they're connected in the chart. And then you have, we went through Mercury, and that's our ability to speak our truth. If you have troubled planets in Gemini or Virgo, or troubled Mercury when it comes to the potency of Mercury itself, then you might have more difficulty expressing your truth or expressing yourself the way you want to express yourself. So the words may not come out exactly how you would want them to come out. And so you may beat yourself up because you're not able to express yourself with the fluency that Mercury likes to have, because Mercury is a fast-moving planet. So even when things are not as fast, Mercury really loves that speed. Because, well, you know, in Greek mythology, Mercury is Hermes, right? And so it's very connected to health and to well-being. And in order to have health, we have to have harmony, which goes down here with Venus. And so you can see the ties that are created between these. One thing that I want to really stress is that they're not separate from each other. So we want to express ourselves in a truthful manner using our Venus. They're always friendly to each other. They're actually best friends. If you have a conjunction between Venus and Mercury in your chart, in your birth chart, then you have a way about you that's actually very charming. They're delighting each other because they're like best friends. So imagine just walking down the street with your best friend. It's a lovely day, right? It's always a good time. You're always having things to talk about. You're interested in each other's things. That's why you're actually friends, right? Because we're seeking someone who's like us. And so we make friendships with people that are like us as opposed to people that are not like us, even though we can learn a lot from people that are not like us, correct? I mean, we really need to learn a lot from people who are not like us, right? Because that actually completes us even more. Because we're already whole individuals, but in this state of being human, we forget that we are whole already and we're connected to God and all that stuff. So we want to have that connection. And so we look for similarities because that's how we feel more connected somehow, right? So last, we want to talk about the moon and the sun. They're actually a team. They're the queen and the king, father, mother. You need both. It's like Daksha and Aditi. They came from each other. You can't separate them, right? So that meets in the third eye area. And the reason why that is because the crown is actually not inside of the physical body. It's actually outside. It's probably around 6 inches above, technically speaking, right? I mean, that's what I know to be true. So it's like part of that crown. It's right here, and then it's just a little higher above. Anyway, so that goes beyond all of the internal energetic systems, if that makes sense. They're actually working all together, but for this discussion, we're gonna say it's above and beyond. So going back to the sun and the moon that are actually working together, and that's Cancer and Leo, right? They're the only signs in the zodiac wheel that are ruled by one or the other. So by the father or their mother, queen or king. And so we want to be able to bring up our energy, right, through the middle line. So we have the Ida, the Pingala, and then we have the Sushumna. I think that's correct. The lights are getting to me. Anyway, so we want to be able to pull our energy upward in order to have that balance of the feminine and the masculine qualities within us and have true vision, true inner vision, that kind of vision that we know what's going to happen before it actually happens. In order to have that, though, the moon and the sun have to work together equally and not one more than the other, if that makes sense. We want to be able to balance it out so that can actually come up through that middle lane of our energetic system, straight up to the third eye area, which is right here, right? And so once we do that and everything else is working the way it should, things progress in our life. In order to do that, though, we really want to be able to make correct decisions for ourselves, as opposed to making our decisions based on everyone else's opinions and wants and needs. Because if we do that, we're not being truthful and we're not going to be able to have that straight up connection to the source within us, right? Because like I said, it's all happening within our body, within our energetic body and our physical body, because we need that physical body in order to have this human experience, right? But we are spirit having a human experience. We're not the other way around, but they're connected in a way that you can't separate one from the other. So even when people don't follow spirituality or spiritual dynamics, they're actually spirit anyway. And so they're, even if they're not interested, a lot of times I find that they're actually really spiritual because they're still connected to that internal source. And that's what spirituality, in my opinion, is all about. It's about being tuned into the truth that's coming from within us through our physical body, because the physical body holds intelligence that's not connected to the mind. The mind actually screws us because the mind needs a point of reference in order to make a decision, right? And so it is programmed, it is conditioned. And so what we want to do, if we're using human design and using astrology the way I do, we want to recondition ourselves to go back to the intelligence of the body, the intelligence of our true divine source, which always comes from within us, not outside of us. Even though we really want to look for it outside of us, it's never going to be found outside of us, because the outside is only a reflection of what's already within us. That's why when we're depressed, we have a gloomy outlook of life. We're feeling powerless and hopeless. We're feeling disconnected because we're actually not able to come into alignment with our truth, because we're so concerned about the outside material world. We're not paying attention to what's going on within us. And so that connects a disconnect, that creates a disconnect, and then we have depression, which is really anger turned inwardly. So it's an anger that's actually repressing our own divine light, right? So we want to be able to kind of shift that, and the best way to shift that is through gratitude, connecting back to Venus, to worth, our true inherent worth and value, that's not connected to the outside world. Remember, Venus is the ruler of Taurus, and Taurus is all about prosperity, making the best with what you have, and having that internal knowledge, internal faith that everything that you need will be provided to you when you need it. That's true prosperity. It's actually not about wealth. It's about being able to know that whatever you need, in the moment that you need it, it will be provided. That's what Taurus is about. It's about a connection to that internal source that provides you with prosperity and resources, things that are of value, things that are worth everything, because that's what you need at that moment. So that's what I wanted to discuss, and hopefully this video has been helpful to you, and I would love to hear from you to see if you have any problematic signs in your chart, any problematic planets. And when I say problematic, it means that they're either overcompensating or undercompensating. So feeling a sort of lack, like I talked about Mercury here, that wants to be able to speed, right? Mercury's really, really fast, and it wants to be able to express itself in the most efficient manner. So when there are blocks to that communication, when there are blocks to that desire to communicate in a speedy manner, that's what I'm talking about. And you can actually work with that, and reconnect with the other parts that can support it, because they're all working together when in harmony. When there's disharmony, they're not actually working together, and that's when there's disease and disarray, because it's disharmonious. We want to be able to harmonize all of our energetic pathways in order to have that middle ground, that balanced Sushumna that goes up to the sun and the moon. Okay, so thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and I hope this finds you well, and I will speak to you soon. Thank you.